Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar, Visual Scheduling Use Cases, What Partners Achieved with the Toolbox. My name is Martin and I'm CEO and one of the owners of NETRONIC Software here from Aachen in Germany. And I'm really excited that we have this webinar today and that you decided to join me for this webinar. So I think the purpose of the webinar is at least twofold. So on the one hand, of course, we want to inspire you with some ideas what you can actually do if you want to build a visual scheduler either for your ISV solution or if you have a customer with very specific requirements and if you need some visual scheduling ideas and we want to inspire you how you can kind of address these specific needs either from your customer or from your ISV solution with what we call the toolbox. On the other hand, we also want to say thank you to our customers and partners and friends from Dynaway and Printviz and give them the opportunities to actually showcase what they achieved with the toolbox so that just in case you run or you come into across an opportunity from the print industry that you know what the Printviz scheduler can do and maybe you can make a referral to Printviz, or if you have an enterprise asset management opportunity that you know that there is the Dynaway solution already that exists and that could be a solution to cope with some requirements of your customers. And so let's get started and not lost in the GoToWebinar chat thing. As said, my name is Martin. If you like to connect with me on LinkedIn, we will share the slides afterwards, so you can just click there, or you can search for me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect there. You can send me also an email. And this is one of the first webinars where I'm actually not alone, but with me are Christopher, who is a development manager at Dynaway, and Christoph, who is a Business Central team leader also at Dynaway, and you see their contact details there. So if you have questions, then please reach out to them via email or connect with them on LinkedIn. And we have Chris, who is a consultant with Printviz, and while Christoph and myself are based in Europe. Chris joins us today from the United States, and you see his contact details as well. And I recommend that we all or you all connect with them on LinkedIn. So for the sake of this webinar, you are all on mute by default. And as always, is the housekeeping information that we don't do this because we don't want to engage with you, but we just want to avoid some unwanted background noises. So if you have a question, you're more than welcome to ask it directly in the webinar with the GoToWebinar chat pane. I will see your questions and will definitively find a good moment of time to ask them to the presenters, either while they're presenting or if they are done with their presentation or towards the end of the webinar. So every question you have that is related to visual scheduling and to the Dynaway and Printviz solution and the toolbox will get answered today. And if we cannot answer a question, then we definitively make sure that you get the information afterwards via email. And besides of this, if you want to discuss anything about the solution that you see today or about the toolbox, then please reach out to us either via email. You see the contact details here, or via LinkedIn, which I think is the best platform to network. Anyway, so with this housekeeping details, let's jump into today's agenda. I will give a very quick introduction into the toolbox, how we call it, and the toolbox is something special, and so I would like to quickly take the opportunity to introduce it again to those of you who are not entirely familiar with the concept, and then we will see actually what Dynaway built with the toolbox to help their customers using their enterprise asset management solution with a scheduling board for asset maintenance, before we then pass over to Chris from Printviz, and where we can see how the toolbox is used to help print production companies with their planning and scheduling activities. Once this is done, I will kind of wrap this up and just show you some what I personally feel being hidden champions of the toolbox. So some features that maybe get overlooked from time to time, or one feature that is new that even we so far overlooked in the development of our own extensions. And I will spend a very few words how you can get started with the toolbox if you like what you see today. But the main part of the meeting today are the Dynaway and the print with examples, and you will see actually not that many slides and demos from me today, and we will change this with the next webinar most likely, but today I'm really excited and happy that both companies, Dynaway and Printviz, agreed to share what they achieved with our toolbox today. So what is the toolbox? And if you're not familiar with the toolbox, we actually spent some head scratching and some time over the last couple of days to kind of nail this down into very few sentences. So first of all, the toolbox is a native control add-in for Business Central developers. So with the toolbox, we do not target at end customers who want to use a visual scheduler, but with the toolbox, we make an offering to Business Central developers. And what we offer you is, as said, a native control add-in. And with this control add-in, you can actually build powerful custom visual schedulers. So what you get with the toolbox is a JavaScript control add-in, so a control add-in that renders in the web client. You can also render it and run it in the Windows client, but the toolbox that we look at today is made for the web client and for Business Central. And you can configure this control add-in and you can interact with that control add-in via an API that is in AL. So although the visual scheduler that you build renders in JavaScript and uses a lot of HTML5 in Java and CSS, you don't need to take care for all of this HTML, JavaScript, and CSS stuff. This happens within the control add-in, but you interact with this control add-in via an API that is in AL so that you can make this part of your extension. We also, by the way, have the toolbox with an CAL API. So just in case you want to use it with Dynamics Nav, this is still possible. And with this with this control add-in, you can create your custom visual scheduler via the AL API configurations and interactions that you can make. And so just so that you know it, because I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with our visual scheduling extensions, because we have 3 of them, and this is like the business that we have become like renowned, or that we are known for in the Navision and Business Central spaces. We have products like the Visual Advanced Production Scheduler, the Visual Production Scheduler, or the Visual Job Schedulers. And everything that you see visually in our extension is always built with the toolbox. So the toolbox is actually like the visual core of our own extension development. So before we started the journey with bringing the VPS and the VJS to Business Central, and before we started the journey of building the VAPS, we actually built the toolbox as a development tool for ourselves so that we can build these different visual schedulers in the most effective way. And then once we saw that this is working, we actually, let's say, fine-tuned the API and made this toolbox also available for others. And I'm always glad that we are better in building products than making product names. So the official name of the toolbox is VSADT, which stands for Visual Scheduling Add-in Development Toolbox. This describes what you can do with it and what it is, but admittedly, the name is a bit rubbish. So that is the toolbox. when you work with the toolbox, when you purchase the toolbox, when you download the toolbox for trial purposes, you actually get, I would say, two pieces of code and 3 documents. So what you get is what we call the visual scheduling control add-in, and you get a sample app that integrates this visual scheduling control add-in into Business Central, where you get examples of how you handle triggered events. You get some sample code for loading data from Business Central into the control add-in. You get some samples for the setting options. You get some samples on how you can scroll to a certain date or certain object. So there is something pre-built. This is not a template for any visual scheduler, but it is more meant to be an example so that you can see how you as a Business Central developer can actually work with the visual scheduling control add-in. And then you get documentation about the data model. You get a description of let's say the key functions of the visual scheduling control add-in, and you get also documentation about the interface so that you get documentation about the API, about the objects and the events. And it works in a way that you have this visual scheduling control add-in, which comes from us and which you also will not change. And then you build your product or your solution with your own Business Central tables or enhanced standard Business Central tables or some custom tables that you build. You develop your own AL code, and from your AL code, actually, you communicate via the API, which is documented in the IDD, in the interface design document, with the control add-in, and there you do the configuration and the interaction. So this kind of remains the NETRONIC part, which you cannot change, but you can configure it and you can interact with it via function calls, objects, and events, so that this then becomes overall your own visual scheduler. And this is really, in essence, what the toolbox is and how it works. And with this, I would like to actually stop talking and pass it over to Christopher from Dynaway, who first gives us some background on what the Dynaway product is and why they needed a visual scheduler before we then pass it over to Christoph, who will show us actually what Dynaway built with the toolbox. So Christopher, I'm on mute and happy that you make the introduction of your product.
Thank you. Yes. In Dynaway, we help manufacturing companies maintain their capital-intensive assets, equipment. And to do that, you are having work orders and a lot of them. And that's why a visual scheduler makes really good sense when you're a planner and have to plan for 50 people a day and the new work orders coming up every day. And especially more so when the planning tool is visual because it gives you a good overview. And I think many of the things that Martin highlighted regarding the toolbox also highlighted the job to be done that we had when looking for a tool, because we can see the benefit of having a visual toolbox inside our solution, which is built into Business Central, and especially because the toolbox works inside Business Central. Now, once we reached that conclusion that we wanted a visual planner, we were in the situation we had to make the decision: should we make or buy? We have a mobile team who knows about mobile code. We could have done that ourselves, but on the other hand, it's also a question of priority. So we need to prioritize our efforts, and we chose to buy. We chose to go to NETRONIC. We have seen the tool in demos, and we know it well, and have seen it work well. So we chose to do what we do well and implement that tool in our product. I also want to ask why we are doing visual scheduling, because on our customer side, customers, again, they have a lot of work orders, so it's a matter of managing a lot of capacity and figuring out who can do this work order today, who can maybe it's a team of people, maybe it's a contractor coming in, maybe it's you also want to know whether the person is overbooked for the day or maybe even for the week, and do that as smoothly as possible. We chose to go with the NETRONIC, and because we know NETRONIC again, and also it turns out that our customers and partners do, because they say, we know NETRONIC, so we don't really have to explain a lot about what that product is all about. The result from having implemented the scheduling board in our software is that we have eye candy that we can present to customers and partners during demos, and that users appreciate using to do their daily planning. So with that said, I would like to hand the let's see the beast and hand the word over to Christoph.
All right, thank you, Christopher.
Yeah, thank you. Let me try to make Christoph the presenter. Just give me a second.
Okay. Just give me a second. I don't know which screen you see at this moment.
We see a screen that said add entity.
Okay, that's not this screen, so let me just okay. Now you should see Business Central.
Yes, correct.
Okay, great. Okay, as Christopher said, I will try to show you what we have, and I also will show you not only the scheduling board itself, because you can imagine that it's this, but what we also did to get to that point, right? So and a few different requirements which we have, and something which I also would like to highlight. In most of the scheduling which you've seen, and also on the NETRONIC toolbox, you use the hours. In our case, our customers are not so the hours are not so required. So as you can see, we don't show the hours here, but we still can deep dive to the whole week and even whole day. So that's something which we did in this toolbox. Also, we don't show, as in production, maybe as in jobs, we show resources, right? But we also limit those resources, that only those which I really want to see are shown here. And but one additional thing which we wanted to show to our customers are also the vendors. So in our case, contractors, where those contractors can have multiple different services which they provided, or different people, and we also do that. So each of these lines is in fact the service which our vendor can provide. But as you can see, that's the difference. The color is also different, because we just want to highlight that that's not our resources, right? So here we have our resources, and I of course can see the capacity of each resource, which is also a really nice feature. I also can see if the resource is overbooked or not. And one thing which you will notice now, when I will move my work order, which I have here, in fact, it has two lines. So it is, for us, it was like our customers want to have one work order per day. So when moving one task, we in fact needed to move another task as well, right? So it's little different. It's not like a linear, but we always need to move, and as you've seen, it was moved. Few things about the setup which we did, because as you can see, there are different colors. So that's also something which can be set, and we are doing it based on work types, standard Business Central thing, but each work type has different colors. So let me just show you. So if I will just change the work type, let's say to the inspection, the color automatically also is changed. So we just were thinking, okay, that's nice that we can have just different colors because choose to be able really easily identify what is in fact on the board. And another thing which can be configured here and in the solution, but thanks that we can do it in Toolbox, is two things. One is that you can see that I see 4 lines in the card itself, but I also see things in the tooltip, right? And that's also something which we can configure. So every time when we just install our scheduling board, we also have a setup which we can just easily from the specific configuration we can just use, and we can use tooltips for labels, but also tooltips, and then we can also use HTML in the tooltips. You can see there's quite a lot of setup. Of course, it doesn't say to our customers or partners that they need to do it. We just install it automatically, and they can restore to default. But that's something which can be changed in each installation. Each board, in fact, can look different. And as I said, with the colors, you can just choose the color from the list which we provided, and that each type has a different color. Right? Few more things which I can just tell you with that is the first one is that you can also develop the context menu, right? So when I click right click, I can see the options, and that's also really nice because we just want to put here that okay, someone can just very easily change the schedule and just put the quantity, right? So for example, 10 hours, right? So that's something, and as you can see, that person is already overbooked, so I also know it from here. To the right pane, and that's also something which we little adjusted for our needs, and we just you can just drag and drop for the specific person and specific date, and automatically it's shown up here. So that's I think the last thing which I would like to show you is the filters. So that's also was that because of the specific of the users, because of the specific of work which is shown here, we want to show sometimes filtered view, right? So for example, I would like to see all the work orders which were for specific asset, right? So let me just find if I, okay, number 16 or 15. So I can just filter for the specific asset and the view, or I can just see all work orders which are in status, for example, in progress or waiting, or I can just filter the resources or expenses. So yeah, if I will filter that, as you can see, I see then only the lines, the boxes and the lines, in fact, which are for the specific asset. I also can see filter in the top, and of course I can just clear the filters. Let me go back a little to the longer view, because we also were thinking how long we should show the in future our scheduling, and that's also something which we can program, and we can very easily develop and just show exact time frame which is in interest of the customers, right? So I think that's all. That's what I can. I hope you enjoy the view what we did. Maybe I also will refer to what Christopher said, just the last word, if I have a minute. It's really a lot of times we hear that a lot of partners already know NETRONIC, so it's really easier for us to explain how something works, because in fact the explanation of it sometimes is just a few seconds, sorry, is say, okay, NETRONIC, okay, we know how it's work, right? So we know what we expect. And that's for us is also a benefit, because we just focus on the functionality, not the tool, as Christopher already said. So that would be from my side. Thank you very much. And if you will have any questions or you would like to hear more, just type the question in the chat, and now I can give back screen to Martin.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christoph. That was already very interesting. And I also encourage to ask questions, so that in case you have people in the call have questions, then go ahead and please ask them. We already saw some of the capabilities that you can do with the toolbox. Like, we had a view that was organized by the resources. We have drag and drop scheduling. We have something like dynamic colors, or colors by some attributes. We had what we right now rarely see in our products, the part on the right-hand side, which we also have in the VJS, but it is not dominantly in our case, from where you can drag and drop the unassigned work orders to the schedule. So I think this is a really powerful dispatching scheduler that you build with the capability to drag and drop the work orders and to bring in new unscheduled work orders that you have used the histograms to show the capacity. And now I'm really curious to see what PrintViz did in terms of helping their clients with print production scheduling. And then afterwards, I think we can compare a bit which type of features you used. And then maybe also I can give some ideas of what could be used in the future, both from the Dynovate team and the PrintViz team, and also the NETRONIC team. So, but with this, let's move over to Chris from PrintViz. And Chris, I will make you the presenter now, and then we see what you guys build with the toolbox.
Thank you, Martin. I appreciate that. I will give a little bit of an introduction while we're getting that presented. I hope you can see the appropriate screen. You should be able to see the planning board and how we've utilized it. So like Martin said, I work for PrintViz. I'm a consultant, and we primarily work with the print industry. So a lot of this company that is set up, my demo company is primarily for label industry. So you might see that there's not necessarily as many resources. So our resources that we use is our capacity units, or the cost centers or machines that the customer has available in their facility. So you can see to the right hand side, we have the pre-press department, the printing department, the finishing department. In those departments, we have the pre-flight, we have the flexo, we have a plate mounting, a Mark Andy 2200, a Mark Andy 2100, table rewinder. You can see that there's a table rewinder 1 and 2, that they are similar machines that we can move the operations back and forth between the different cost centers and machines. And you can see that we utilized the date and the time as well. So this allows the the user to have a more visual representation of what the schedule is going to be like, especially on the specific cost centers, and it allows a vibrant color setup. So that was what we liked about NETRONIC, is it provides a lot of different color aspects and a lot of easy customization. So with that being said, I'll go into a little bit of the setup to kind of set a little bit of the stage. So if I go into the planning board setup, so this planning board setup that we're going to talk a decent amount about the colors. So this allows you to set up the user to set up the specific colors that they would like to view. So we have a simulation that I'll be discussing, warning colors. We also have a more advanced setup in colors. So we have different types that you can select. You can select the general, which will show you if a operation is in progress, if the operation is paused, maybe the operation is running late. You can also have different types set up into customer groups, so you can set specific customer groups. If you're working in a variety of different industries, you can have a print industry. Maybe if you are working with, if the industry is working with magazines or brochures or that kind of aspect, you can set those up. And then you can also set up, a lot of customers utilize a VIP customer group, so it allows you to pay close attention to those customers that are frequently return and ask for a lot of products. You can also drill down upon that into customer numbers. So if you say you have specific customers that you would like to keep an eye on, make sure that the production is running smoothly. Perhaps they have a lot of rush orders that they would like to be produced. You can set that up. We have an order type, which is it's a high level. It allows for report setup, so you can do a live report based off of that. So you can have like if you have customers that come in directly and contact a sales representative, if you do a lot of those, you can have a direct. You can also have what we call the web shop. So if you have a website that customers perhaps order the product from your company, you can set it up so that way you can pull it into different color groups and keep an eye on that as well. And a secondary level of the order type is the product group. So a direct customer might be ordering custom labels or fan fold labels or stock labels. So it allows a secondary level of reporting, and you can keep an eye on the product. You can also allow the customer to be able to organize their product. If there are a lot of custom labels, you can back them up, back-to-back jobs perhaps, or maybe the custom labels has a lot of setup, so you want to back the stock label jobs back-to-back because there's less setup required and there's a lot of similar setups, so you can utilize the setup time that route. You can also do the status code. So the status code allows the user to be able to keep an eye on the different, where the job is on the shop floor. So perhaps the job is waiting for approval from the customer, so you can't put it onto the planning board until the approval has been, or the customer has approved of the PDF. Or even if it's in pre-press or production, it allows you to keep a visual representation, and it allows to draw the attention, and it's a lot easier to see versus having to go case by case. And originally we had a planning board that didn't utilize this different color schemes, and this was a big thing with the print industry. A lot of the customers wanted a nice colorization and be able to easily draw attention to specific jobs or keep an eye on where the jobs are in the production floor. So another setup that we have is the tooltip, like what was mentioned in the Dynaway, that they utilize the tooltip as well. So we utilize it. You can have the order number pulled in, the job name, what status it's in. You can also see when the job is planned to start and end. You can see which the next operation that the job is going to be, that is going to proceed to the next operation. You can see when that is supposed to start as well. So that gives you a little bit of a background on some of the items that I would like to demonstrate. So like we were talking about the tooltip, if you hover over top of one of these operations within the job, it shows you all that information. It shows you the order number, the job name, when it's supposed to start and end. So it's supposed to start the 25th of August, which is the demo environment I have set up to this time, the 25th. And so it's supposed to start at 6 a.m. and supposed to be completed by 10 p.m. for this specific operation. If I were to click on this operation, it shows you the flow of the job as it flows through the shop floor. So you can see that it will start on the pre-press and it'll move into the flexo plate, and it flows into mounting, and then it will continue to flow on through the shop floor. And that's a nice representation. It allows the user to be able to see how it's going to progress as it's moving along that shop floor. And another view, if you were to right click, you can see that you can pull up the case card, which is it's the job jacket, as a lot of customers refer to it as a job jacket. It pulls off all the information from a request to a quote to an order. It allows you to be able to easily drill into that without having to go back into our other parts of the system and pull that up. Case planning, so it's a different kind of planning. It's a more of a, it allows a little bit different of a adjustment without having this visual view. But a lot of our customers we found like this visual, like to be able to, you can easily drag and drop, so you can move, you can drag, and you can drop it wherever you would like to for it to be moved to. And then so a nice feature with the capacity filter is if you were to right click and click the filter capacities, this filters the different machines that are going to be used for this specific job. So it allows more of a focused view, so you don't have a lot of the extra noise from the other jobs or the other machines. So it allows that more fine-tuned visualization. So it allows the user to be able to focus on just these specific machines that they're going to be using for this job. All you have to do is undo capacity filter. So with that, you can also filter based off of machines that you'd select. All you have to do is control and left click, and you have your selected machines. You can also filter based off of those as well. This is beneficial for customers who have 150 different machines that are on the shop floor. This allows them to, again, get rid of a lot of the extra noise, a lot of extra machines, and focus more on these specific machines. And again, you can just undo. It's nice and easy. Another nice feature that we have is you can highlight. So again, it's highlighting that specific job. So all the other jobs based off of the setup are turning white. So that way the only color that is being represented is for that specific job that I had selected when I would to have done that highlighting. And again, all you have to do is just reload, and it refreshes the page back into the original view that we had. So like I was mentioning about the different color types, so we have right now it's referring to the status codes. So it will show you the different status that the different jobs or operations are. So you can visually see that if this job is, the red that you're seeing is because the job is late, it hasn't been started, or it's not in progress for when the actual time of this planning board. It's not, so it's late, so it allows you to see maybe it's late because it's on a different, the plate mounting hasn't been completed yet. So it allows you to go and allows the user, the scheduler, to be able to go directly to the shop floor and find it a lot easier and be able to track down why is this running late. It's because you can keep track of the status in that route. So like I was saying, we also have the general, the customer group, the customer number, the order type, product group. So if you go into general and I were to reload the page, you can see that the colors are going to change. So the colors have now changed. So the ones are marked green. These are in progress. So these are in progress, and you can see that they are on track. It's being completed, and in a good time manner based off of when it was scheduled. The ones marked red are running late. The ones that are white are going to be ones that have already been completed. So it gives the visualization on these jobs or have been started and they're running on track or they're running late, and allows the user to be able to then track down any jobs that are late. So I'm going to switch back into the status code. And you can do the same thing with product group. It does the same thing. It will change the color representation based off of the setup that we had. So it now changes to the different items that are set up. So in the status code, I will have it, and also I can have the delivery date bar set up. So if we reload it, give my system a second. So if you were to select a job, you now see this requested delivery date shows up. So it allows the planner to schedule based off of the delivery date. Obviously, you don't want a operation to be past the delivery date. If you can help it, you can override it and move it into past the delivery date if you would like. But a lot of times, you obviously, if you want to get a job out of the shop before the delivery date, so you can have it delivered and ready and into the customer's hands as it was promised. So another nice feature that we have based off of that is we have this date line. So we have the date line that's visible. So let me just reload, get rid of that requested delivery date. So we have you now see that the yellow bar is showing up. This shows up wherever the cursor is. It shows up the date and the time that the cursor is placed. So this allows the user, it's especially important because we can split a job. So if I were to right click and I were to select split, it's going to split that job wherever that cursor was placed. So it allows the user to be able to, if it's running into the weekend, or if somebody, if it's running late and you have to move it into the next day, you can split it and move it accordingly. You don't have to move necessarily the full job. So you can also just left click and highlight. So you're highlighting, and then you can easily just merge it back in, and it collapses the operation back together from where we had split it before. And then we also have another nice feature we have is the simulation. So I have this enabled simulation set up. So currently, if I were not to be using the simulation, whatever changes I make is affected directly on the shop floor. And if I wanted to maybe perhaps move some operations around without affecting the shop floor directly, I can easily just hit the stop simulation, the start simulation. I can then move an operation that was not necessarily a good one. So I can move this operation however I would like. So I can move it, maybe we want to, this is a rush job, we want to move it along quicker. I'm going to have some of the operators come in early and do some overtime. So I can move it. You now see how it's yellow based off of the color setup that we had. This is yellow, and it hasn't been applied directly to the shop floor yet. Not until I hit the apply simulation is it going to be applied directly to the shop floor. After I hit that, you see that the color changes back to normal, the original color that it was. So this will now be affected on the shop floor, and it will it will show up on the shop floor itself. So that way the operators can now proceed. And then another feature that's highly utilized is the show setup time. So let me just undo this date line. So I have this show setup time. I have that Boolean checked. So if I were to reload, and now you're going to see that there's going to be a gray bar that shows up, or a portion of the operation is highlighted in gray. That based off of the case itself, the setup time that was selected, this now that gives you a representation of how long it's going to take for this operation to set up. So it allows you to utilize if the item or operation requires a lot of setup time and you have some rush jobs, then you can move it around accordingly. So it allows the planner to see how much time is scheduled for that setup. The rest of the bar is going to be just the operations itself. So it's going to take this much time for the press operator to set up the operation of the machine, and then the rest of the time is scheduled for that production. And then another feature that we have is the show and hide inbox. So this inbox is jobs that have not yet been scheduled. So these operations haven't been scheduled. Perhaps they've just been approved, or it's just been the order has just been confirmed. So now all you have to do is just grab the operation. Oh, that one's actually on the wrong one. Let me grab one that's in the inbox. So I have this operation, so I can easily just move it from the inbox into the actual production floor. So this is the actual, and so if I were to hide that inbox, so it gets rid of the extra line, so it gets rid of the inbox, and now that job has been planned and it's ready to proceed. I know there's a lot of features to explain. I'm trying to explain the more to utilize features. So if you were to grab the operation and try to move it, these curtains appear, as we call them, and the white space, or the unhighlighted, is the opening, is the availability. So you can easily see when you are available to move this job. They might open a close. They might be more of a gap or less of a gap based off of the delivery date, the start time, or even when the operation, the prior operation is scheduled to end. So you can override it and place it into the curtains, but it still gives you a little bit of a visual representation as well. It allows the user to more understand where you can place the job, what beneficial place to place the operation. You can also do, you can also move it to different, if they're similar, based off the setup, if they're similar cost centers or machines, you can easily move it from the WebTech 2 to the WebTech 1. Perhaps there's more opening capacity availability on that WebTech 1, so you can easily just drag and drop it. You can also, there's a lot of dragging and dropping, and perhaps you want to move it from one machine to another machine, and also to another time. If you didn't want to just drag it and drop it, and then drag and drop it onto another time, what you can easily do is just Control, and then, oh, I'm sorry, Shift is what I was meaning to say, Shift, and then you can drag it, and it's independent of each other, so you can easily move it to another machine and also move it to a different time frame as well. So that's a nice feature to have. And then we also have what we call the world view. So this world view gives you, instead of having to scroll, perhaps you can easily grab it and you can move a lot quicker. And you can also see when different operations are available in the planning board, so you can easily just drag it and then you can let go, and it pulls you into directly that time frame that you have selected. And to collapse that, all you have to do is just hit the world view and it will collapse as well. So there's plenty of other features that we have available that I might not have time to mention. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Martin for this opportunity to present the planning board to you guys. And if you have any further questions, or if you want to reach out and want to get more information on this planning board or PrintViz itself, feel free to reach out via email, or you can also do LinkedIn as well. So I will pass it back to Martin.
Thank you very much, Chris. That was very impressive and interesting. So for all those on the call who haven't seen or haven't heard about the toolbox before, so I just now ask you to, let's say, mentally compare what you have seen with what PrintViz did and with what Dynaway did, because I feel we saw two very different types of visual schedulers. Both were structured by the resources, but then there were a lot of differences. So the Dynaway one was looking at scheduling work orders by day, so they didn't need the time information, whereas the PrintViz scheduler schedules operations by the minute. So both is possible and both is supported by the toolbox. Then when we look at both schedulers, they made extensive use of colors and of possibilities to change the colors. PrintViz looked at having the bars narrow so that they could see a lot of operations on the screen, whereas the Dynaway scheduler showed a lot of text on these bars so that with every work order box, you could exactly see what type of work order this is for which customers, what the amount of work is. So there was a lot of more information pushed, let's say, to the first level of what you see. Then both schedulers actually worked with different concepts of an unscheduled order. In the Dynaway scheduler, you saw the unscheduled orders on the right-hand side, and Christoph pulled them in via drag and drop. Whereas in the PrintViz scheduler, they had the concept of the inbox, where they could show an additional line in the schedule underneath the resource that would be responsible for that specific operation, and Chris just moved it vertically there. So both schedulers have been built with the same toolbox. And I see that there are some questions, and I suggest that we answer them at the end, because actually I'm about to wrap this up. And I just want to make the point that both these very different schedulers, and different in terms of look and feel, but also in terms of user interaction and user ergonomy, they both were built with the same thing. They both were built with a toolbox. And if you're familiar with, for example, our visual production scheduler or the visual job scheduler, then these schedulers again are different, and they are also built with the same thing, with the toolbox that we talk about. So the toolbox is very flexible and gives you a lot of opportunities and a lot of possibilities to build actually a visual scheduler that meets the needs of your clients or of your industry. And I just want to conclude this presentation with some of the hidden, and I picked 3 hidden, but still very powerful toolbox features. And the one actually is something that we saw in the PrintViz scheduler. This is what we called allocation entries. So typically with a visual scheduler, and this was the case both for Dynaway and for PrintViz, you have a resource and then you allocate work to the resource. However, what you could do with the toolbox, you can, let's say, segment this allocation into sub-allocations. And Chris gave the example that they had this gray area in front where he said, okay, this shows the setup time and the rest shows the production time. However, the allocation entries, they are not limited to let's say, showing the setup time in the beginning, which we also, by the way, do in our production scheduling products. But you could also do something like this, that you can say, this is the time that my resource is busy. And let's assume you build a transportation scheduling app, then this resource could be your truck. And then this is the time that the truck is unavailable because it carries out a job. Then this could be the time that you have to load the truck. This is the time the truck is on the road. And this is the time the truck is on the customer side, and that's where it is unloaded or where it is cleaned, because the truck transports some stuff that requires significant cleaning before it can get loaded again. So allocation entries definitively are something to look at if you have processes where a resource is busy by, let's say, one job, but while it is busy carrying out this job, there are different types of activities happen, like with the truck, the loading on the road, the unloading, or in production, this could be the setup time, this could be the production time, and then this could be like the material has to wait in the machine because it has to cool down, or it has to dry, or something like this. So this is something you can easily facilitate, and we have seen this at least with one allocation entry with PrintViz, but you can have multiple. So it is not limited to one, and this is just another example. Then we saw different types of bars, like the Dynaway bars, they were high with a lot of text. The Printvis bars were small with less text, and then there were different types of colors. They had the allocation entry, but bars can also have layers and bars can also have symbols. So what you could do is you could do something like this. So this could be your job, or this could be an operation. And then from here, you would see if you get back information about progress. So if this could be a project task that runs 3 weeks and the employee booked already 1.5 weeks. So you see 50% of this is done, and you could also add a symbol here. However, this type of layer, which here is used to show the progress, could also be shown after or in front of the bar. So here in this case, this could mean that we had scheduled it like this, but now my operator or my foreman or my project manager actually predicts that it will run until here. Likewise, we have other customers who use also with the toolbox this type of, let's say, underneath layer to show it left from the bar, to say, okay, this is actually the baseline. This was my original project schedule, and now this thing is scheduled to be here. And then you can have symbols at the bar. So now let's look at this bar. This again could be an operation, and maybe this symbol shows you when the material of this job or for this item arrives, and this symbol could show you what would be the delivery date to the customer. So this is an alternative to what you see in the Printvis presentation as the curtains. So this is also something that you can do. And talking about symbols, and this is a new feature, and it's a feature actually that we at NETRONIC also should explore in our visual schedulers. We now not only have the capability to have the symbols and the bar, but we now can also have symbols in the table. So you saw that both schedulers have this tabular part where you saw with Dynaway the field service workers or the maintenance workers, and with Printvis you saw the machines. And now what you can do, you can either on top of the table or on any, let's say, grouping level or on the resource itself, you can show symbols. So you can actually have an exclamation mark here that would indicate that this resource is working on a job that is running late. Or you can make an alert that say, okay, this resource is running on a job, or if there was a job scheduled on that resource, it should have been started before now, and it is not yet started. And then you can also kind of literally, if you have the business logic, move these symbols up so that you can see, okay, here is an issue, and then you drill down into the resource. So I think the capability to having symbols and alert symbols at the beginning on the left-hand side of the schedule in this tabular part that you always see is actually small, but can be very powerful in terms of directing the attention of the user to where they should focus. And with this, let's quickly talk about how to get started with the toolbox. And basically what we provide you with is with a 30 days trial version. It comes with the visual scheduling control add-in, the demo app, and all the stuff that I mentioned before. There are no functional limitations, so it's full functionality. And what kind of has been established as a best practice is that you use these 30 days to build a minimum viable product version of your visual scheduler. So the recommendation is that you, when you trial it, that you focus on one use case or one user story. Keep this simple but meaningful. So, okay, I want to help my users, like in the Dynaway example, I want to help my users to visually schedule unassigned maintenance orders or work orders to a maintenance technician. And then you would build a scheduler which shows some technicians on the left-hand side. You have this middle part with the schedulers, and the right-hand part where you see the unassigned work orders, and then you help them drag and drop. In that case, you wouldn't care for colors, you wouldn't care for filters, you wouldn't care for date lines and for automatic scrolling, whatever. You would just build this one use case. It is also recommended that when you build the minimum viable product version, that you do what I would call the full circle integration, which means that you read data from Business Central, that you change it visually, and then that you push the visually changed data back to the Business Central data so that you update the ERP system. And if you want to get started, go to netronic.com/toolbox, and from there you can download it. And with this, I will open it for questions, or I will look at the questions that were asked in the meantime. So the first question is from somebody who already left the webinar, but I think it was also more general on production scheduling. The second question was, if there could be also a project view. We have about 20 work orders for one sales order and would like to filter by project name so we can see if everything will be finished on time for the one sales order. Well, if you in your environment, in your solution or in your customer environment have this link and this connection from a data perspective between the sales order and those work orders, then you definitively could build with the toolbox such a project view that on the first hierarchy level would look at your sales order, and then you could expand the sales order, and from the sales order look into the single work orders and see when they are scheduled to be done. And you could also work with visual alerts so that you can see on one glance where you have late work orders. We have something that follows this thought in the VAPS, in the Visual Advanced Production Scheduler, where you can have a sales order, and the sales order contains multiple items that you sell to the customer, but that you have to produce first. Then in Business Central, you can create from the sales order production orders, and we have the capability from the visual scheduler to say, okay, show me this operation in the sales order view, and then it is exactly like I just described. It shows the sales order first, and then you can drill down into the items, and from there into the production orders and see when they are running late. And there, if you have filters like we saw, quite powerful in both the Dynaway and Printviz solution, then you could also filter in your case on the sales order. So I hope that this answers your question. And then there's another question on Printviz. If you have jobs that are dependent on each other, if you move one job to a later time, will the following jobs also move at a later time? So Chris, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, so right now it's not, it does not do that. You'd have to move them all, but we do have a feature that you can highlight multiple operations and they move them corresponding to each other. So you can highlight multiple operations, and then when you go to drag just the one operation, whichever ones you have highlighted, it will move those. Maybe you have a half-hour gap in between them, it will correspond that half-hour gap and keep it as a lump, so you can move them that way. But if you were to just drag one job or one operation, it doesn't automatically affect the other one unless they overlap. Then if they overlap, it can cause the one that's overlapping to be unscheduled. So it depends on it, but it also depends on the setup that you have as well. So you can't have a setup that they are independent of each other, so you can overlap them. Some of the operations, what happens is some of the machines, if you have multiple machines but you only have one machine on the cost or on the planning board, then you can allow an overlap, and then you can assign that manually to those different cost centers of machines. So the best way to do it is to highlight multiple operations and move them together that route. I hope that answered the question. If not, I can go into further detail about that.
I think that was quite clear, Chris. Thank you very much. So that was the Printviz
Martin, you're muted.
I'm mute, so now I'm unmuted. Thank you. So that was the the printvis part of the answer, and I already got the confirmation that this is very clear. Let's also give a toolbox part of the answer, because if you have an ISV solution where you have a dependency between jobs, then of course you can build the visual schedule in a way that if you use the first job, then that the, let's say, for the subsequent job is automatically moved as well. In Standard Business Central, we have this in the manufacturing module where you can make a reservation so that you can basically say, okay, this production order is for a subassembly, and the other production order takes this subassembly and builds the final product of it. And there, the data model with the reservation table makes the subassembly production order and the final production order dependent from each other. And then if the subassembly production order is moved, then the final production order is moved as well. So with the toolbox itself, I would say, would not care if the dependencies come within one job or this is from one job to the other, but this is the question of how the data model of your solution or the data model of your customer database is set up. And so with this, I currently do not have and do not see any further questions. So I would cordially thank Christopher, Christoph, and Chris from Dynaway and Printvis for joining me today for this webinar and giving really interesting and also for me inspiring presentations on what they did and achieved with the toolbox. And we saw two really different type of use cases and two really cool visual schedulers. And I would also like to thank you that you joined us for this webinar today and looked at what other companies achieved with the toolbox. And if you have any question, then please reach out to the Dynaway team, or please reach out to Chris from Printvis, or reach out to myself. Thank you very much. Stay safe and healthy, and hopefully see you soon. And if you have any question, please connect with me or the others via email or LinkedIn. Thank you, and see you soon. Bye-bye.